if you want to have the conversation about manifesting, it has to begin with meditation, because meditation is how you plug in, is how you remember that. And it's how you return to that truth of who you are. And when we return to that truth, then all of a sudden, I believe that our desires are divinely designed. And so we have these soul desires that we come in with that oftentimes, like we were talking about, we get so distracted with what we should do in life and busyness and all the stuff, we forget about them. And meditation then once again brings us into that place of stillness and silence and mindfulness and intentionality in our life, that we can actually start seeing some of these desires emerging.
You are listening to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, where you will find both the inspiration to grow and the actions to implement towards your next level. I am your host, 𝗁𝗁𝗵𝗄, and my mission is to inspire you to stand out and live your best life. I interview thought leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, spiritual teachers, exceptional people who will inspire you to improve your life and offer, through their wisdom, actions you can take and implement. Tune in for 2 new episodes each week, and make sure you follow the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, I am delighted to speak with Cassandra Bodzak. Cassandra, you are a thought leader, best-selling author of 2 books. Eat with Intention was the first, and your latest is Manifesting Through Meditation. You are a holistic lifestyle expert, meditation guide, spiritual mentor, and host of the podcast Divine Downloads. You are passionate about helping people all over the world learn the process for bringing their soul's desires into their everyday reality. Cassandra, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you as well.
Cassandra, I would really like to start, and there are some very interesting things that I certainly want to, go into as much detail as time allows today with you. Before we go there, I gave a brief introduction of the person you are today, but I would like briefly to take us back for a moment to previously, before maybe your spiritual journey started. So if you could just share what were you doing and what led you to that quest, so we can maybe understand that transition point.
Yeah, I feel like I was a pretty normal kid, had some struggles at home that I think, led me to be pretty introverted and have certain issues with food and my body, and just struggled a lot, I think, emotionally, internally when I was like a teenager and going into college. And then when I was in college, I actually went to school for acting. I acted, I was an actress from like middle school. I did like all the plays, lived close to New York City. So I did a bunch of like independent films and stuff. Went to college for acting. And it was in college that I ended up actually getting really physically ill. And I didn't know what was going on. I was just getting these weird pains. Everything else seemed like I was healthy. And I did all of these blood tests. Nobody could figure out what was going on with me. And that was kind of like where the first crack into my spiritual journey happened, because you reach this place of surrender when you're like, there are no answers. I don't know what's going on. And that's when I started, at that point, just talking to God, talking to my body's intuition. And it was really just from a place of like desperation and surrender, as I think so many people sometimes get to on that journey. And that was when it first started. And it was through having those conversations where I was just in a lot of pain, trying to make some sense of it. I was led to looking up certain books in the library and researching food allergies. And it was kind of like these ideas just kind of like popped into my head, right? And I just experimented with it. And as soon as I gave up all this food that was commonly caused different allergies and stuff, I felt 100% better. And so that kind of opened this whole floodgate to, wow, like there's something else at play here than meets the eye. And then it wasn't until that's when I started a blog. I started a blog kind of talking about my journey with my body and connecting to my intuition and my different food allergies. And then it wasn't until I was 25, I was now in New York City, acting professionally, doing my thing. Still had the blog because I loved it. It was like a passion project. And my little brother got diagnosed with this autoimmune condition. And it was a really rare autoimmune condition, mostly found in older men. And he was 22 at the time, because he's 3 years younger than me. And it was just like one of those like curveballs in life. And that's what I think, that was the moment that really like everything changed for me. I went so deep into surrender in the sadness of that. And that's when I heard meditate, that like, I call it the like bathroom floor moment, right? When you're just like crying and surrendered and what do I do, God? And I heard meditate, and that changed my life, because then I don't even, now looking back, it's like, I don't even know how it all clicked together, but it was like, I was on this mission after that day where I was meditating multiple times a day. I would look up meditations on YouTube. I went to like a Buddhist monastery in Brooklyn. I tried Kundalini. I got trained in Vedic. Like I just like went all out. And before that moment, I mean, I had done some yoga. I'd done like, some other things, but I was far from that. And that's really when everything started clicking. That's really when the spiritual journey began for me. And the more I meditated, and the more like naturally, they always say like the books fall off the shelves, right? But it's so true. It's like all of a sudden then I was reading A Course in Miracles. I was reading Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and, 𝗵𝗂_cie_𝗿𝗲 and all these kind of books kind of kept on coming out at me. I'd watch lectures on YouTube of like spiritual teachers. That's kind of when everything cracked open.
Thank you. That's it's a fascinating story, and there were quite a few things that were coming into my mind while you were speaking. What you said about surrendering, or the bathroom floor or the kitchen floor moment. I've heard stories like this before, and they're very powerful when you have this, maybe the lowest moment when you don't know what to do anymore. What I found very interesting, and you mentioned the phrase a couple of times, my body intuition, I think you called it, and I would like to discuss this a little bit more in detail. I think it is something extremely important, and I also think that many people, I don't know what your experience is, they are not, let's say, attuned to it. I'm not sure if they are aware of it as well. There was a point when you were describing, you used both the body intuition and God in the same phrase, one after the other, which for me it sounded like it's not different. That's how I interpreted it in the way that you were saying it. So let's talk about this body intuition, about listening to the body, and from your experience, from what you learned from there. If there are some specific lessons or something you can tell someone who wants to, go deeper into understanding and listening to this body wisdom or intuition or God.
Yeah. So I think, for me, I believe that they are the same thing, right? That it's kind of like God just using my body as a tool to communicate, right? However, for listeners out there, I don't think, you can believe whatever you want about it. First of all, just put this out there, like when I say God or divine, like replace whatever word you use, right? If it's source, if it's love, it's the universe, if it's Buddha, whatever word it is, it doesn't matter. It's the same experience, in my opinion, right? And so when you're connecting to your body's intuition, if you want to just think about it as your body's intuition, that's fine. If you want to think about it as like the divine speaking through your body, that's great too. It works either way. And so the way I saw it is that our physical being is a mechanism that receives signals, right? And if you think about it, just a really simple way for any of the listeners out there who are like, what? If you've ever looked at, let's say you've ever looked at like a really like decadent like ice cream sundae or something like, crazy like that. Yes. And you already almost get a stomach ache. Like your body like starts to get a stomach ache just at the thought of eating all of that, right? That's like a little version of it, right? Where it's almost like your intuition is like too much, right? It's another version of it would be if you've ever, if you've gone on dates, right? Where you go on a date with someone and there are certain people you'll go on a date with and you won't feel the urge to hug them or want to like hold their hand or anything. You just won't feel that urge to be close to them. You might still think they're a nice person, but you're just, and then there are other people that you almost like, you're like, wow, I just met this person and I'm already like, arm in arm with them and I want to like hug them. And our body speaks to us. I mean, that's true for friends too, right? It's not just romantic. There are certain like friendships you meet and instantly your body, like you cozy up next to them and there's that feeling. So our body is always communicating to us in different ways, right? It's telling us things all the time. And even when you think about, I like to use body intuition with some of my clients as a way for them to help make intuitive decisions, right? Because one of the big parts of the spiritual journey is making more divinely guided or intuitive decisions. And so whether that decision is, do I want to have oatmeal for breakfast or do I want to have, a donut or whatever, right? Or it's something bigger. Like, do I quit my job? Do I start this new venture? Do I leave my marriage? Do I get into a relationship with this person? Do I, whatever it is, right? We can tune in to our, physical being for information around that. So if everybody wants to just close their eyes right now, if you're not driving, don't do this if you're driving. If you're driving, just do it with your eyes open. But if you close your eyes, you just notice where your body is, get your body to a neutral place, take a couple breaths, and then think about maybe 2 different options of things that you could do later today, right? And think about option A and option B. Just choose whatever option A and option B are. And then when you've chosen them, bring up option A and see yourself doing option A. So maybe it's like taking a walk in the park or it's finishing your taxes, whatever it is. Think about option A and just notice how your body feels while thinking about option A. Does it feel open? Does it feel relaxed? Is there tension that is there, right? Does it feel closed off? And then when you've got that information, switch over, think about option B. What's that other thing that maybe is on the agenda or the to-do list? And now feel that in your body. How does it feel to do that, right? Option B is not the one for you. I could just tell from your face watching you, right? And that's just body information, right? When our body when our intuition is guiding us to do something, our body relaxes, our chest literally expands, our shoulders go back, our smile, like you had, I love watching people's faces when I guide them through this, because like you had this really soft, pleasant smile. I could feel how peaceful you were with option A. As soon as I even started talking about option B, the smile went away, right? And so this is a great thing to do, even if like you do it with a friend or you record yourself on your phone camera, and just notice, like, how does my face look when I talk about this? How does my face look when I talk about this? I always say that our mind can lie to us, but our body is the ultimate truth teller.
Thank you for this amazing decision-making process, because I think it's for me anyway. It's obvious the benefit of taking a decision according to what is the right thing to do, or what is guiding you. And I liked very much how you simplified it, and you gave some examples as well about hugging your friends or not, or which are I think sometimes when people talk about body intelligence or body intuition, they assume it's something very subtle and mystical, and something that it's not easily understandable, that they need to do training or something. But with simple examples, brilliant examples as the ones you gave, it's I believe it's easier for someone to realize that wait a minute, I do have indications coming from my body. So maybe the next step is, do we listen to them? Because they come to us, and it's great to start attuning to it, to them, whatever it is. I think the next step, or maybe the difficulty, is listening to them, or trusting that this is the right thing versus the other thing, because as you know, and I think everyone that has a head knows that the voice in the mind can be very loud and persuasive, and distracting you from what is really, genuine and authentic and true in your heart, rather than what you must do.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's the work of the spiritual path, right? It's like, great. Step one is that you know what is good for you. You know what feels expansive. You know what your body intuition is telling you, what your divine guidance is telling you. But then step two is, can you actually take action on that, right? Can you follow that up? And that's why I often tell my clients to start off with really small decisions. Start off with that decision that maybe doesn't feel so intense. Maybe it's the decision of, like, should you go to that event tonight, or should you have a quiet night at home and maybe finish up on some work or read a book or whatnot? Something like that feels like kind of a low bar, and then making that choice, right? And maybe it is a radical choice to stay home when you got invited to an event that you feel like you should go to, right? And we build up muscles that way. We build up muscles with every time we check in. And one of the, I know we were talking earlier before the podcast, and you were saying you really like actionables. So I'm giving a lot of actionables because I do think it's important. It's thinking of, like, what are those little decisions, right? It's like, it's silly when I brought up, like, the breakfast choice, right? But being willing to actually just tap in and honor that, right? Being willing to go to the same maybe place that you grab your coffee and whatever from every morning, and tapping in instead of just going on autopilot and getting the thing you always get. Actually choosing, oh, you know what, today my body feels like this is more expansive, right? You have a 20-minute break in between meetings or something, and coming up with two options for yourself and thinking, okay, well, one part of me maybe just wants to go to a park and meditate for, 10 minutes, get some fresh air. And the other part of me is like, well, you should, respond to your emails, or you should send all those text messages back, or whatever it is, and then actively choosing what your soul wants to do and not what you should do, right? And being in that space of having more practice so that when it gets bigger, when it gets more intense, when your intuition and your soul is calling you to do bigger things, more radical things, where maybe it's like, leave the job, start your own business, leave the relationship that's not serving you, or whatever it is, right? You've built up that momentum, right? You've built up that momentum to trust it, because then what also happens is when you start listening to it on those little things, and you'll inevitably not listen to it sometimes, right? So when you listen to it, let's say that lunch break, you have your 20 minutes and you listen to it one day, and you're like, you go to the park, you do your little 10-minute meditation, you come back and you feel amazing and refreshed for the rest of your day. At the end of the day, you look back and you reflect and you're like, wow, that benefited me so much just listening in that moment, right? Even the breakfast choice, right? You make the choice that you feel guided to, and then you feel great. You make it through all of your morning meetings, you feel amazing, and you're like, wow, that was a really good choice. I'm so glad I listened. And then inevitably you'll have a day where you don't, where the should gets, the better of you, and you're like, you know what, I have 20 minutes, I just should answer all these text messages, so we do all of that, right? And then you feel not so great. Right? Then you feel depleted, you feel anxious, maybe you don't show up for the rest of your day as well. And it won't be very dramatic, right? But it'll just be enough for you to start creating that connection, right? Where it's almost like that neural pathway connection of I listen to this and things go well. I listen to this and it feels good. And then the more that we have that association with it, the more things actually just start working for us, and things start flowing more and more in our lives, and we trust it more and more.
Hi, it's Aggie here, interrupting you with something you may find useful. One of the most frustrating feelings is when you're trying to focus, but you can't get your brain to concentrate on the important work in front of you. This happens to me all the time, and if it happens to you too, you are not alone. 40% of people say they have to make a big effort to concentrate. But if you're having trouble getting focused, I have a solution for you. I'm so excited to be partnering with Brain FM. Brain FM is a great app, and I use it to block out my mental chatter and zone in on my number one priority of the day. Brain FM uses functional music that is backed by science and research, and it is designed to give us that extra edge when we need our undivided attention. And they also have relaxation, meditation, and deep sleep modules that help you unwind and recharge. So if you want to be able to place your full attention exclusively in the activity you choose, whether that's meaningful work or relaxing or getting high quality sleep, right now, as my podcast listener, you get 20% off Brain FM subscription at brain.fm/Aggie. That's an amazing deal for such a useful app. Thousands of people have given 5-star reviews to Brain FM. Find out why? brain.fm/Aggie. Thank you, and I think it also, what you described, shows how important it is to pay attention at how we're feeling, what is happening in terms of our emotional state. Or you mentioned the example earlier of sending your emails or responding to your texts instead of going for a walk, and then feeling drained as a result. And I think it's very relatable, and I'm sure most people listening have had similar experiences. It's the matter of being able to be aware of it and not just let it go, which I will speak personally here, that many times when I'm not in my, let's say, in the most alert and aware state, I might have these responses from my body, but I might tend to ignore them or overlook them, or at the very least not pay that attention that they deserve, and say, oh, it's only I'm just tired and it's going to go away. So I'm just sharing that as maybe a subtle trap that there is there, preventing us sometimes from paying attention, listening to what our body is telling us, and doing the thing that it is.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's more of like having a mindful way of living, right? So you're like living with more intentionality. And I think that begins at the beginning of your day, right? It begins in the morning with your meditation, and you start the day like that, and you're like, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to connect to my higher power, the divine. I'm going to tune in, and I'm going to intentionally start my day. Then you walk into the day with more mindfulness. You walk into the day because for me, meditation is often hand in hand with a prayer of sorts, right? Where it's like a prayer, even if it's like a general prayer of like, guide me, show me the way, right? Show me what would be in my highest good today. And then you go into the day with that intention. So you go into that day looking at those little things and asking yourself, what's the guidance here? Where am I being guided? And following what feels expansive and following what feels good. And and it's totally normal and it's totally human when we fall out of that, right? And we get busy and other things go on and we go unconscious. And I always tell my clients that I don't expect any of them to become like a Buddha on the mountain and like transcend their humanity. I think it's more about, can we have a quicker comeback time? Right? Can we catch ourselves in those moments where we go unconscious? Can we catch ourselves and, maybe you go unconscious for a day and you're on autopilot, or you go unconscious for a few days because you got crazy stuff going on at work. It's not about beating yourself up about it, right? It's just about being like, oh, I did it again. Look at that. I did it again. I'm burnt out. I'm stressed. Look at what happened. Okay, let me just get back on track right now. Let me just start from whatever this moment is right now, the next decision I have to make, the next move. Can I just tune in? Can I allow myself to be guided? And can I be more mindful and aware of that guidance?
I liked very much how you explained the mindfulness in this way of coming back to the moment, realizing that, okay, we have gone astray, or we have, but it's okay, let's get back, which is similar to the meditation. When we meditate, isn't it? The mind will tend to drift away, and you bring it back, and then it moves, and you bring it back, and that's why they call it practice, because it is
it's a practice. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's true. It's just like in meditation, and it's like sometimes when you meditate, you're thinking about your grocery list and all the things that you need to do, right? And it's okay, right? And then you just keep coming back to your breath. And even in those meditations, if you are successful at sitting through them, they have some value and they do actually make you feel better. Mm-hmm. And some days you do reach more of a transcendental state and you go deeper, but they're all valuable. And it's about being able to just show up and do the work, right? And not... It's easy to do the work for anything, right? When it's easy. But when we build muscles, like even in the gym, right? You build muscles with greater weight, with greater resistance, right? So it's in those days where all you want to do is think about your laundry list and all the groceries you have to get and what you have to tell your mom and all these things, right? Those are the days that you build your mindfulness muscles, right? That you're like, nope, bringing myself back. Nope, bringing myself back.
That's great. That's I get it, and this working out or working up to it, or practicing and improving and getting better at it, and reducing that time between you going astray and catching yourself and bringing yourself back to the moment. It is a process, and it is a journey, and it can be fun if we look at it like that. We're talking about meditation. I also wanted to discuss with you, because you, with your book, you bridge meditation with manifestation, and manifestation is a word that has a certain color to it. So for some people, they think that it is something, out there. So not necessarily for everyone, but can I ask you, I wanted to ask you, obviously it's a big topic, you've written a book about it, but meditation, manifestation, what is the connective link between these two?
Yes.
I'm sorry if my question is very broad.
No, it's perfect. So the whole reason why I wanted to write the book is because I do think there's such a strong link between manifestation and meditation. And I think a lot of people are really curious about manifestation and completely forget about the meditation component of it. And what I think meditation does is meditation gives you that strong foundation. It connects you to your source. It connects you to the divine. It connects you to your higher power. It connects you to the part of you inside of you that isn't this physical body, right? That is unlimited. That is infinite potential, right? Yeah. And it's from that space that we create anything in our lives. So we create that, it's from that, I call it the quantum field, right? But it's from that space that all of creation emerges not from our limited physical human, right? It's from that space of us that knows that we're so much more of that. And so for me, if you want to have the conversation about manifesting, it has to begin with meditation, because meditation is how you plug in, is how you remember that. And it's how you return to that truth of who you are. And when we return to that truth, then all of a sudden, I believe that our desires are divinely designed. And so we have these soul desires that we come in with that oftentimes, like we were talking about, we get so distracted with what we should do in life and busyness and all the stuff, we forget about them. And meditation then once again brings us into that place of stillness and silence and mindfulness and intentionality in our life, that we can actually start seeing some of these desires emerging. And then from that, and in the book and I have a 40-day meditation guided journey program called Amplify. And you can utilize different meditations to connect to the divine, connect to that infinite potential, then connect to your soul's desires. And then you can also utilize meditation to help you release your fears and your doubts and your limitation, right? And then we use meditation again to embody that next level us, right? So the way I see it, meditation is like this foundational cornerstone for all 4 of the key steps to manifestation. And it all goes back to that main concept that when we remember who we are, then we remember that we're divine creators, then we remember that the things that we desire are divine, and we can call them into being, right? And we can take the actions and we can step into the energy and they can flow into our lives.
Thank you. And I like you mentioned the quantum field. I think you said that it's from the quantum field that all creation emerges, and that's so that's so true when you really contemplate on it. And you said earlier, you were saying about I don't remember the exact words that you used, but like a vehicle for the divine to express itself. I think you said it in such a way, and I've had similar experience that I felt like, and I will share specifically when I ran the London Marathon last year. It felt, the experience happened through me. I kind of felt like I was also observing Aggie running the marathon, particularly the last few kilometers of it, when I went into a complete state of, there was no thoughts, there was nothing, there was only running. It was not me. So
It's a deep meditation.
It took about after 4 hours of running to go there, but
But you got there.
Can I ask you, from your experience guiding your clients or your students in meditation, what would you say is maybe a big obstacle in someone when they do meditate, they do put the effort on a daily basis. However, the results, and I will use this word quote unquote, the results do not seem to appear, or this maybe the transcendental state that you mentioned earlier, or something that is an experience, a unique experience, but it seems to be eluding. Do you think there is some particular obstacles? Does my question make sense?
Yeah. I think, that definitely happens with some people where they feel like I'm showing up for my daily practice. Mm-hmm. I'm not really getting that feeling that everyone else is talking about. I'm not really finding the peacefulness or, transcending into that space. And I think there are some really practical things around that. I know, you like the practical, right? This is, I think, there are some practical solutions here. So one is don't have caffeine before you meditate, mm-hmm. right? Caffeine, we're stimulating our brain and we're already getting it like up and running and going, and it stops your brain from being in that nice relaxed state. That's kind of the ideal meditation state, is between asleep and awake. So if you want to think about how you feel, maybe that first time the alarm goes off in the morning, or you hear the dog bark or the light creaks in, and you're kind of like, you're awake, but you're not fully awake, that's the state we want to be in. So don't drink your morning cup of coffee before you meditate. Try to meditate first. That will really help you. Doing it first thing when you wake up, or right before bed, can also help you as well, because once again, our body is already naturally in that state. So if you just move from your bed to maybe a chair in the room or the couch or whatnot, so you're not in bed going to fall asleep, but you're still not allowing yourself to fully wake up, you can get a really nice, powerful meditation. Another thing in that regard is making sure that you're really comfortable. Having your body in a nice, comfortable state. I always say that, the kind of meditations I'm doing, I'm not like, there's a level where I have done meditations myself personally, where you transcend certain like physical pains from sitting so long, which I personally love. But when we're just starting out, we don't need to do that to ourselves, right? We don't need to do that yet. We can build up to that. And then another big thing I would say is meditate longer. I think we have a culture of like, we want everything and we want it really quick. And I'm all for someone doing like a 5 to 10 minute meditation if they're just trying to build up that like routine and that stamina of taking that time for themselves. But if you really want to feel something, if you really want to, get to that space, there's a reason that most traditions are at least 20 minutes, right? And so taking that time, for me personally, and I've been meditating for years, I really don't like short meditations because they don't do much for me, right? It's like a nice little recentering, but I'm not going to get the juice from 5 minutes, And so I would say doing a longer one, and one of the things that I've told for instance, I have this 40-day meditation program called Amplify, and some of the people have asked me about that in that program. And I've told them, just do the meditation. The meditations are 15 minutes long or so each. Do it twice, right? Think about that first time you're doing the meditation. If you're doing a guided meditation, it's okay if you open your eyes or you stop. You've still brought yourself down to a more relaxed state. And so the second go round at it is about to be that much more powerful. Because I do think it's important to have people have that experience, because when you touch that place, then you no longer need to be convinced to meditate. You want to keep touching it. You want to keep, visiting that spot. So I think it's important to help people get there.
Absolutely. That's why I'm asking. And thank you so much. Your answer was very useful. And what you said about the 20 minutes minimum is important. Yes, because many apps have less than that. And also it is what you said about we want to do things as quickly as possible, that the microwave mentality. Yes.
It's true. But you know what I always say, that the time that you spent meditating has such a high ROI. It has such a good return on your investment that if I meditate for, let's say, an hour in the morning, you could think of that as like losing time. But actually, I've seen this with myself time and time again. I'm so much faster and like more focused and clear. And so I get so much more work done in less time when I go into it from that meditated state versus like just skipping the meditation and going into it with my frantic, anxious energy.
I know exactly what you mean.
We've all done both.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's important what you were saying earlier to realize that if I've done something and I can see the results in my day, the feedback from my day coming, and it's not favorable to me, just to take a pause and reflect on what has happened and why am I like that and how I can change it next time so that I don't perpetuate it. So yeah. I think,
and that's it's a simple thing, but it's huge, right? Just having that moment. It's like one of the things I force my clients to do all the time, where it's like, I'm not upset with you if you fall off track, right? I'm not upset with you if you mess up. But just in that moment, let's like stop and reflect and just do exactly what you said. Just ask yourself, what happened? Oh, I woke up late, or I snoozed 3 times, or you know what? I immediately started thinking, I answered my phone as soon as I woke up, right? Just see, where did it go off track so that you can do better the next time. And then, it's never... Sometimes I've had those days and I realize by lunchtime I didn't meditate and I'm frantic and I just had to jump into a bunch of work stuff, right? And so I just stop and I meditate then, right? I'm like, let me just do it now so the rest of the day gets to be better.
Yes, it's never too late to turn things around. Every passing moment is a new opportunity to start over. That's great. Thank you very much. This is wonderful. Cassandra, to be honest, I briefly touched maybe 2 out of the 5 or 6 things that I wanted to discuss with you about, but I don't mind, because I think we went kind of deeper in this topic, and hopefully we've provided some not just value but also some maybe implementable, actionable items. I know for sure for myself, and I will share that right now, I'm going to increase the time I practice meditation, because when you said it, it completely made sense that I'm not doing enough. I'm doing it every day, but not to that sense. So I also got a very actionable, simple thing to do.
Good.
So thank you for that. I would also like to ask you some quick fire questions just to wrap this conversation up. And the first one I always ask is, what does personal development mean to you?
That means, for me, it means always continuing to grow. Mm-hmm. It means always trying to become a better version of myself, or as I would say, a more expressed version of my soul, and in better alignment.
I like that, the more expressed version of the soul. It's a great way to describe it. Thank you. And a hypothetical question: if you could go back in time and meet the 18-year-old Cassandra, what one piece of advice you would give her?
Oh my gosh. What would I give her? I would just tell her to trust trust that it's all working out and to go for it. Just go for it. And that, just go for it and know that you can create anything you want and that everything that's going to be ahead of you is going to really serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm. I've asked this question to hundreds of people, and sometimes it's amazing how similar the theme of not the answer itself and the words are different, but the meaning there of that trust, that believing in yourself, not to worrying about what life holds, is so common. I really like that as
and it's funny because it's still probably something that most people struggle with, right? But it's I'm sure, of course, the people that you're interviewing on your podcast, you have that level of self-awareness where now it's like, well, I see how all the dots connected. Yes. I don't need to tell her to necessarily do anything differently. Mm-hmm. But if I tell her to trust, then maybe it'll save her some pain and anguish.
Absolutely. Cassandra, what is the best place for people to connect with you and find out more about what you do? And you mentioned the Amplify program earlier on as well. So can you direct us to it?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Cassandra Bodzak. I have a lot of there. The link in my bio on Instagram has, can help you get to the Amplify program. It can also, which is a 40-day guided meditation journey. It also has links to my book, if you're interested in my book, Manifesting Through Meditation, or to my website. I think we're going to give you some links to put below so that you can I have a free Divinely Design Your Life 101 course, which kind of talks about, we touched a little bit on those 4 pillars of manifesting through meditation. So if that was intriguing to you, that's a good workshop to dive into. And then, of course, my website is CassandraBodzak.com. So you can find all my things on there. But I'm active on Instagram, and you can also reach out via DM or say hi. Let me know you enjoyed the podcast.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I want to thank you very much for this conversation we had today, Cassandra. I found it, I had a feeling beforehand that it would be, meaningful and deep and entertaining as well. And I think it was. So thank you very much for your time, for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I want to wish you all the very best with your mission and your work in growth and contribution. So any last parting words from you?
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for having me on. And for all of the listeners, I would say, don't get overwhelmed with the spiritual journey. I think, I'm really excited what kind of just naturally evolved out of this episode, because if you follow the practical steps we talked about in this episode of just those small daily moments of listening to the guidance, right? That's all you need, right? That will guide you where you're going. And so, keeping it back to the basics of your meditation and following that intuition are, like the golden keys. So don't let yourself get too overwhelmed with all the other things. Like, keep it simple and you'll be on the yellow brick road. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed listening and that you got a huge amount of value from today's episode. If you have, please share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to know more about what I do, visit my website 𝗁𝗁𝗲𝗄. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,